This looks like a motel, but it's not. It's a prison. It's a community corrections facility, sometimes referred to as a pre-release center. There are 9 of them statewide. Inmates prefer this type of prison over the ones in McAllister or Lexington because of the privileges available, such as work release, liberal visitation privileges, and even weekend passes. The problem is some inmates abuse those privileges. Some have even used them as a base for furthering their criminal career. So today, the Corrections Department picked out 43 troublemakers and bounced them back to more secure facilities. The Corrections Director says the abuses have ranged from possession of small amounts of pot to a string of armed robberies. And he says even minor infractions will no longer be tolerated.
Well, I certainly hope that it'll say that the State Department of Corrections is going to run their programs clean, and if they can't be clean, that they have no welcome or place in that program. And that's the clear message to the employees of the department, that they don't have to tolerate it, and to the offenders that if they abuse the program, then they are not welcome in that program.
The crackdown came as a surprise to inmates, but it also got Meacham's message across.
I don't know what really all the new rules are. I ain't paid that much attention to them, but I guess I'll start paying attention to them now since they shipped 6 of them off this morning.
It's not just a hotel, it's still a penitentiary. And new rules, it don't bother me, really.
It's a prison, but one with doors that inmates can walk through almost at will. To keep that privilege, they have to watch their step. Ted Brown, Action 4.
Well, I think that we've got one advantage. We have an administration that's committed to strengthening the national defense, but there are a lot of tough decisions to be made. The Soviets have leads in a lot of areas. They're gaining control of sea lanes around the world. To combat that requires a lot of money. And there's a question in terms of where our economy is and where it's been going over the last several years, of how far the American people are willing to go in spending the money it takes to build up our defense. We've got a lot of problems we have to deal with, and I think we're going to have to spend a lot more on defense than we'd like.
When I first checked, it was obvious that the driver of the car was dead. I found a person still alive in the back seat. So the priest and some other people who had arrived helped me get her out of the back seat. We got her on the ground where she could breathe better. And there wasn't much more we could really do until the ambulance arrived.
How do you make sure your county commissioner doesn't do anything illegal while in office? Ever since the start of the county commissioner probe some 6 months ago, there have been a number of proposals on how to cut down corruption in county government. Some of those proposals have been more popular than others, but the latest proposal is under some heavy criticism.
Commissioner after commissioner is being indicted for corruption in office, and the blame has been on a system that has made it too easy for county commissioners to take kickbacks. It had gotten to the point building suppliers felt they couldn't do business with the county without giving the commissioner some money under the table. There is talk among some state lawmakers to try and consolidate some of Oklahoma's 77 counties and cut that number down to about half, thus meaning less commissioners in the state and easier to keep an eye on those in office. But State Senator Ed Moore and Representative Neil McCaleb are fighting to kill that proposal. McCaleb would like a referendum to see if voters want a county manager to function much as a city manager does. And he has another proposal.
The next proposal, which that I have, would require the county commissioners to run county-wide or at large. Right now, they run exclusively within their districts. That way, they're not responsive to the voters in the entire county. And that, I think, is bad, that it creates an atmosphere of we have, 3 separate districts in the county, and there's not any county-wide coordination.
Recently elected Oklahoma County Commissioner Buck Buchanan has some thoughts of his own about how elections should take place.
Well, in the first place, I wouldn't be representing the entire county even if I were elected county-wide. I'd be representing a certain segment of the county. Then why don't we do it as far as representatives are concerned, where they're running for a particular district, but let them be elected statewide?
As for what commissioners do buy, Buchanan and McCaleb both agree there should be a county purchasing department with the responsibility of knowing who and why certain materials are bought. This is one idea closer to reality than most others. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
Passing vehicles, the building blends into the urban scenery. Nothing outstanding about the building where the Tax Commission stores thousands of state documents, including fresh, unstamped car titles. Since these titles will not be used, they're being gathered up and taken to the shredder. However, on October the 2nd, before the cleanup got underway, 2 men backed the pickup to the loading dock, ran into the warehouse at high noon, and came out with some 15,000 titles. Titles that will help keep an Oklahoma car theft ring in business. Who was supposed to guard these titles? The Tax Commission says the district attorney's office volunteered for the job.
The DA's office, their auto theft division down there, with some undercover agents, came up with the information that some titles were going to be stolen from the Oklahoma Tax Commission printing shop. They asked us to cooperate with them, to just conduct business as usual so that no tip-off would be given that we had knowledge of this fact, that surveillance would start. Frankly, that's about all we knew until such time as the titles were actually stolen.
Bob Macy tells a different story. Did you have an arrangement with the Tax Commission to guard their warehouse?
No, we never did. We never planned to. We never offered to. Bear in mind that my people were in an undercover role. If they had set up to protect anything, it would have been a tip-off that they were not what they were pretending to be, that they were in fact police officers. So at no time have we ever indicated that we could or would set up and protect the location.
I'm Scott Wallace. For some vets, today was not a day filled with fond memories. For millions of Americans who trudged through the jungles of Vietnam, Veterans Day holds no special meaning. These vets came home to jeers, not cheers, and many feel they've been mistreated by the Veterans Administration.
I'm dying, I can't stop it. And what can I do? You go to a doctor, they don't know nothing about it.
For others, war-related medical problems remain. These men say they're still suffering from exposure to the potent herbicide Agent Orange. They say the government has turned a deaf ear to their complaints. Even some older vets have become disillusioned. These disabled American veterans are worried about administration budget cuts. Discussion of cutbacks in burial benefits and medical programs have replaced war stories when these aging veterans get together. These men who fought on foreign soil know the situation will not improve anytime soon. As the commander of the Oklahoma Disabled American Veterans said today, November 11th, 1981 will be remembered by many of the nation's war veterans as a dark day because of the action taken by the Congress to reduce or eliminate services previously provided to the war veteran that served this country in time of war. Scott Wallace, Action 4. Edmond is a rapidly growing city. Everywhere you look, new houses and businesses are being built. The Edmond Chamber of Commerce likes to take some of the credit for attracting new people to Edmond. The Chamber gives prospective residents a fact sheet to answer commonly asked questions. Questions like, what is Edmond's population and rate of growth? Question number 11 has angered some people. Does Edmond have many minorities? Answer, less than 1,000, and most of those are students at the university.
Well, it's what we call another subtle form of saying that one community is better than another community and that the criterion for that is race. We think that that is a bad criterion to be considered in terms of making a decision about where you're going to live.
I feel that the information was simply stated and it reveals the facts as they exist, and that to read something else into that statement was grossly irresponsible on behalf of the reporters and reporter or reporters in question, and for that matter the black leaders in question. You know, our position always is and has been that anyone who desires a home or business in Edmond should have it, and the Chamber openly and aggressively supports that concept.
The Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce also distributes information about the makeup of minorities in the Oklahoma City area. For example, about 17% of the population of the greater Oklahoma City area is made up of minorities. The difference is these figures are presented in a way which is more sensitive to the feelings of minorities. Scott Wallace, Action 4, downtown Oklahoma City.
For the second time in 4 weeks, Southwestern Bell has been forced to bring out the heavy artillery to do battle with a water-soaked phone cable. Workers inspect the 6-foot hole and Norman's only phone link with the outside world. Too much rainwater, too much heavy mud equals too much pressure, cracking the cable and allowing water to soak the circuit about 2 this afternoon. The result? No phone calls in or out of Norman. The same problem silenced Norman phones for about 12 hours last month. Today's short circuit takes place on the same cable just 2.5 miles down the road. A pouring rain hindered last month's repair work, which dragged on through the night. The biggest obstacle today, mud. But as it turns out, not big enough. Crews were able to dry out the cable and restore phone service by about 7 tonight. Much quicker than the first battle, and much to the relief of Norman residents. Now back in touch with the outside world. Larry Otis, Action 4, Norman.
First they cut down on the brands you can buy, and now they're cutting down on the days you can buy them. Everyone knows you can't buy liquor on an election day. Well, earlier this year, the ABC Board asked the Attorney General's office if that law included such things as public school bond votes. He said it did. One retail liquor dealer says it doesn't, and he's taking it to court.
All of a sudden, we're having to close on school bond and school board elections, which we have not had to close for 21 years. This is the first time that we have been told that we must close, and this is the Attorney General's opinion that we have to close on school bond and school board, so I am objecting to it, and hopefully we'll get some relief from the courts over this.
Shannon says the ruling is going to cost him money, especially since a Putnam City bond issue is coming up 2 days before Thanksgiving, which is one of his busiest times of the year. He is asking the court for a temporary injunction to prevent the State Liquor Board from enforcing the Attorney General's opinion until he can get a court ruling that will do away with it altogether. Ted Brown, Action 4.
This is a common sight along Oklahoma highways. A state trooper has caught a speeder. The motorist may protest the citation. In fact, the offender may have only been going 55 when he actually passed the trooper, but he's been clocked by this man at 75 a few miles up the freeway. Jim Giacomo is one of a handful of Oklahoma highway patrolmen who pilot traffic spotter planes. From his aerial observation post a few thousand feet above the highway, Giacomo watches for fast-moving vehicles.
He's still running 72 miles an hour.
Using a stopwatch, Giacomo times how long it takes a speeder to travel 1 mile. If it takes less than a minute, he knows the violator is going faster than 60.
72 at 145, I thought he's 2.5 west of 66.
Giacomo advises his ground-bound teammates of the color, time, and speed of the violator. He then keeps the speeder in sight to make sure the correct car is stopped.
112 Adam, 63. I'm bringing you a white over maroon car from the west. He's running 75 miles an hour. 75 mile an hour. The time on him is 2:35, and I'm clocking him 2.5 miles west of you.
A trooper in a black and white flags down the offender, writes the ticket, and tells the speeder he was caught by a patrolman in a plane.
Quite a few of them feel like it's unfair and that we're taking advantage of them. However, the speed limit is 55, and we're just trying to get the motoring public to comply with the 55 mile an hour speed limit.
Giacomo also flies manhunts and searches for lost people, but his bread and butter is traffic enforcement. It's something he loves doing. And besides, he doesn't have to listen to any speeders' complaints or alibis when they get caught. Scott Wallace, Action 4, above Interstate 40. Sharp. The school buses head north on Morgan Road from Mustang Valley School. About a mile north of the school, the buses must cross this one-lane bridge over Mustang Creek. There's a traffic jam each day as the buses negotiate the creaky old bridge. The school kids used to come home on less traveled Sarah Road, until that bridge across Mustang Creek caved in more than a year ago.
An oil field truck went off the bridge. His load was too heavy to be supported by the bridge, and the next thing we knew, he was down with his bed over, and the bridge was collapsed. And consequently, the buses that used to take this bridge to go to Mustang Valley School have had to be rerouted over the one-lane bridge on Morgan Road, and we're sort of isolated.
While construction crews rebuild the fallen bridge, the city is suing the trucking company, which it says caused the old bridge to collapse. The city claims the offending truck was 34,000 pounds over the posted weight limit. When it's finished next month, the new bridge should be able to support the weight of heavy oil-filled trucks. But there's no way the city can afford to beef up all of its bridges to such standards. The city council has already upped the fine for violating bridge weight limits to $300. It's now considering increasing the cost of oil drilling permits to help cover the cost of repairing or replacing the city's broken bridges. Scott Wallace, Action 4, Southwest Oklahoma City.
three men got away with $22,000 in cash. One of the suspects encountered the Brinks guard in the basement of the bank building. He shot him. The guard cried out, "Help me, help me." And that brought this man, a worker in the building, face to face with the robber.
Down and said, "Hey, what happened? Do you need some help?" And he looked up and said, "You better get out of here or I'll shoot you too."
Because he is the only eyewitness, he wishes to have his identity concealed.
And when he said what he said, I just immediately looked at his eyes. I didn't want to look at that gun. My adrenaline, there was bumps all over me. I was just so psyched up. I didn't think of anything. I didn't think about him shooting me or him shooting anybody. I just intent on getting that tag number. That was my number one concern for some reason.
How'd you feel afterwards?
Scared to death. Because after I stopped and thought about it, I analyzed everything. At any moment that I was chasing him, he could have stopped me. Here I am, shot number victim number 2.
The worker spent all day yesterday under questioning by the FBI, and he will be an important link in the case against the suspects. Bella Shaw, Action 4, at Lakeshore Bank in northwest Oklahoma City.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy yourself. That's what jazz is all about, according to KOCC announcer Frankie Parker.
When people listen to radio nowadays, they don't want to hear lyrics because lyrics really bother the subconscious mind. I think a lot of people are bothered by lyrics. I think they like the easy listening, the jazz, where they can sit back and really relax, where jazz becomes almost habitual, where they depend on it to really relax because other music doesn't provide this.
KOCC, FM 89 on your dial, started out playing all kinds of music from easy listening to rock. But under the leadership of Professor David Lowry at OCC, the station has taken on a new format of a style often overlooked here in the Midwest, jazz. KOCC is manned by students who volunteer their time for the sake of art.
We are a commercial-free station, and therefore we have to have the radiothon and things like this to raise money.
The 89-hour radiothon begins this morning at 7 o'clock, but as Parker points out, the radiothon is only the beginning. KOCC will not sign off on the 90th hour, but will continuously play jazz all the way, every day. Carol Lambert, Action 4.
For years, Oklahoma Natural Gas has conducted off-system sales of natural gas. That means O.N.G. sells some of its surplus gas to interstate transmission companies. The fuel flows through lines like these to utility companies in the northeastern U.S. The O.N.G. gas heats the homes and businesses of folks in Brooklyn and Boston. Those out-of-state customers pay handsomely for the Oklahoma gas. Before 1978, O.N.G. made most of its profit on those off-system sales. Utility rates in Oklahoma weren't high enough to generate much income for the company. In 1978, the State Corporation Commission changed all that. The commission gave O.N.G. a hefty rate hike and forced the company to begin passing 90% of its profits on off-system sales to its Oklahoma customers. O.N.G. was allowed to keep 10% of the profits. In 1980, the commission changed its mind. It ordered the utility to pass all of its off-system sales profits along to in-state ratepayers. O.N.G. has credited $124 million in such profits to its customers in the past few years. Last month, O.N.G. asked the Corporation Commission for a $32 million rate hike. Included in that package was a request for a return to the old 90-10 formula. The commission staff recommended O.N.G.'s request be approved with one major modification.
Staff recommended that the company first achieve the same level of off-system profits that they achieved during the test year that we evaluated in the rate proceeding, which was about $46.7 million. After this level of off-system profits is achieved, then we recommended the company be given 10% of the profits over this level during the 12-month period considered.
Attorney General Jan Eric Cartwright disagrees with the proposal. He's recommended the Commission order all past profits on out-of-state gas sales be refunded to Oklahoma ratepayers.
In effect, it is a contribution by them keeping the profits, of which in effect is the customer's gas. By keeping the profits, the company in effect is retained plus interest, probably $200 million. I think that the ratepayers should not have to pay a rate of return on money they in effect have given to the company to buy plant and equipment.
The State Corporation Commission must now decide whether to go along with its own staff's recommendation, or with O.N.G's recommendation, or with the Attorney General's recommendation, or perhaps come up with their own recommendation. In any case, the Commission is expected to make a final decision on the matter within the next couple of months. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at the State Capitol.
The Federal Aviation Administration says its air traffic control students are doing a better job. According to the FAA, only 21% of the current trainees did not successfully complete the critical pass or fail portion of their training. However, a source has told Action 4 the failure rate was not 21%, but closer to 48%. The source says the FAA neglected to include about 36 students in its count. The result? An improved pass-failure ratio.
This is not true. Certainly it's not true. The failure rate, as you can see, is down in the 20% range, 21, 22, 23. It's down near what the average used to be, in fact, a little under the average that we had in the what we call the old days before the strike.
Those are accurate, calculated figures.
Yes, these are accurate figures.
Weaver says he would be aware of any miscalculations in the pass or fail test. He claims sources at the center may from time to time give reports without having all the details. Larry Audis, Action 4 at the FAA Center.
There was a bag of money recovered at the scene where the robber switched from the getaway car to the switch car or cars. The bag contained an undisclosed amount of money. I'm unable to disclose the amount, just as I'm unable to disclose the amount of money taken in the robbery.
Thanksgiving shoppers have more reason to buy turkey this year than last. Overall, turkey prices have gone down, and that's helping to keep the bird as the traditional Thanksgiving feast. The cost reduction is attributed to a fowl increase. Turkey producers just outproduced themselves.
Well, overabundance on turkeys right now, but with people buying the way they're buying, it won't take long to get to market. And with all the turkey byproducts that are put out, like turkey lunch meats, your turkey weenies, turkey hams, and people with these low cholesterol diets and stuff are really into it.
Turkey prices probably won't go any lower after Thanksgiving either. Their lower prices, coupled with a slight upturn in prices for other holiday meats, will encourage more shoppers to put the bird in the hand, and for this year at least, may make turkey the unchallenged king of the roost. Charles Schnetzer, Action 4.
These employees at the Social Security office are breathing a little easier, knowing they are still on the payroll today. A spot check of several federal agencies showed that most of the government employees showed up for work. Even though they were warned last week their employer would probably run out of money to pay them. People depending on Social Security were glad to see the office in operation. The phone calls today seem to be asking the same question that was answered at least 100 times.
Yes, the Social Security office is open today. It will not be closed. We are considered an essential agency, and there will be no effect on the Social Security checks as far as we know. Thank you.
Until today, not many federal employees gave much thought about if their department was essential or not to operating the government. All they know is no matter whether you call it furlough or laid off, it still means no work and no pay until the budget situation changes in Washington. More than 50 employees working for the Office of Personnel Management were the first to get the bad news in Oklahoma City today. This is the office accepting applications for federal jobs. Not long after employees arrived for work, they were told to go home, and the sign on the door explains the rest. Ed Stewart, Action for the Federal Building.